Welcome back to Wildlife Safari. Today we're going to talk to you a little bit about our cougar here. This is Tasha. So I'm going to be doing some training with Tasha, and Julianne is going to teach you guys a little bit of information about her.
So like Kat said, this is Tasha. She is a female cougar, and the training that we're doing with her right now is all to help with her care. We want all of our animals to be as stress-free as possible, so we encourage them to participate in a variety of medical procedures. So what she's doing right now is opening her mouth, and that allows us as keepers to see her teeth and her gums and her tongue to make sure she doesn't need something like a root canal, or to make sure that she doesn't have any cuts in her mouth that could be having maybe consequences in her eating. And all of these things are things that, of course, with an animal like a cougar, we can't just go up and open her mouth. So having her present her mouth to us like this voluntarily helps us to better care for her. You're going to notice that Kat is going to stay on the opposite side of the fence at all times. Cougars are an animal that we work with protected contact. So that means that we never share space with the cougar. Yeah, they're not super large cats, but they're very, very powerful. They're very fast, and they have a very strong prey drive. And we don't want to get ourselves into a dangerous situation. And although she's a pretty friendly cougar, we just don't ever want to take chances. You saw a little bit ago, Kat was investigating the bottom of Tasha's paw. And right now she's having her do a stand behavior. That stand gives us a chance to look at her belly and evaluate her body score to make sure, along with weighing, that she's getting all that she needs diet-wise. What she's eating right now is canned cat food. She does also get bigger things like rats, but we found that the cat food, as she gets to be an older cat, is much gentler on her digestive system. And we always want to do what's best for her. When we're training, all of these training things that we do with the animals are voluntary. We use what's called positive reinforcement. So we'll ask an animal to do a specific behavior. You'll see Kat will give a verbal cue along with a hand motion. And if Tasha does not respond, there's no punishment. We don't verbally punish. We really don't address the fact that she's ignoring it. We just move on and ask her to do something different. When she does the behavior that we're asking for, you'll either hear a click from a clicker, or in this case, you'll hear Kat say good.
Touch. Good.
There we go. And that's what's called a bridge. And that lets Tasha know, excellent, that's exactly what we were wanting you to do. And because you did that so well, you're about to get a snack.
So you mentioned that she is getting to be an older cat. Christina is asking how old she is.
She is 11 years old. They, in human care, have a fairly similar lifespan to that of a domestic cat. But at this age, just like with a domestic cat, you'll start to see them slow down a little bit. They might start having things like arthritis. But she's doing really, really well. So far, all her joints are staying nice and agile, and she's able to do all the things she would normally be doing.
If you guys have any questions at home, feel free to post. We would love to answer them for you.
Tasha is about 80 pounds, so she's really an itty-bitty kitty. Cougars, just like humans, have a natural weight range, and their weight can be as much as 135 pounds. So she is on the lower side, but she's not underweight. If you look at her body, she is exactly the weight that she should be for her bone structure. Any more and she'd have a bit of a gut. Tasha is a rescue. She came to us from a family. There were states at one time that allowed you to have cougars as pets, which you can imagine is not something that would be the best idea because they do have such a strong prey drive. They are not a safe animal to work directly with, which is why we always have that barrier in between us. And they need a lot of space. They're very active animals, especially when they're in their younger years. They're really agile climbers and jumpers and they're able to jump as much as 20 feet horizontally in one bound.
Ashley wants to know, how much do they sleep?
How much do they sleep?
Girl.
Well, they
Last
are a
piece.
cat. And being a cat,
All
they
done.
do sleep quite a bit. They tend to sleep about, on average, 20 hours a day. And most of their hunting will be done out in the wild in the early morning hours or at dusk. Tasha gets fed throughout the day here at Wildlife Safari. So she'll do a bunch of cat napping throughout the day, and then she'll wake up to get snacks.
Another Ashley wants to know how long Tasha has been at Safari.
We've had Tasha here for about 4 or 5 years now.
And Emily wants to know if she's had any babies.
She has not had babies. Cougars right now in the wild, especially in Oregon, they're doing fairly well population-wise. So we don't have any need to be adding more to that population. At Wildlife Safari, when we breed animals, we want to make sure that we're doing it responsibly. So we only breed animals whose populations in the wild are declining drastically or are endangered.
Jennifer has a good question. Do they have the same allergens as house cats?
As in, do they make people allergic to them?
I think so, yeah.
That is something that I'm not sure about. I had a mild cat allergy and I've never reacted to her dander, and I don't remember any guests ever having sneezing fits around her, but it's possible.
Let's see.
In the wild, cougars are solitary cats. A lot of people ask us, doesn't she get lonely here at Wildlife Safari? She's all by herself. But the answer is no, because that's exactly how she would be living in the wild. They are not an animal that will hang out together in groups like lions. They prefer to be by themselves. And usually they only cross paths when it's breeding season. And they have a pretty big home range. Depending on where they're living, if they're living in a more rural area, their home range can be over 100 square miles. If they're living in a more populated by humans, that is, area, it can be as small as 5 square miles. And usually a single male will overlap his territory with a handful of females, and he'll be the dad of all of their little cubs.
Trish is asking if cougars are night hunters or day hunters.
They're crepuscular, which kind of means both. They're most active at dusk and dawn, so they'll be hunting primarily when the sun is rising and the sun is setting. And they tend to be animals, when they hunt, they'll catch something that's quite large, and then they'll do what's called caching. So for her, that would be something like a deer. When she catches a deer, she's not going to be able to eat that whole deer at one time. So she would eat as much as she could and then either bury it or tree it and then come back to it over the course of about a week and a half to finish eating it.
Peggy is asking, how is she with the staff here?
She is a very sweet girl. She's also a little bit of a diva, which means that if you are not one of her regular trainers or not a keeper who's usually in her section, she will test you, especially when it comes to shifting in and outside. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're just joining us, we don't ever share personal space with her. So when we go in to clean her yard, we need to make sure that she's safely inside and secured before we go to do that. And some days, especially if you're newer, when you ask her to do that, she'll just look at you like, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. But for the most part, she's a really sweet girl. She responds to our voice. Usually she'll come over and say hello, give a little fence rub, little chirp. Looks like she's enjoying an after snack drink over there.
Emily wants to know what noises she makes.
Cougars make a variety of different noises. They can make a kind of a chirping noise. They can make a yowl or a scream, which is something that they're known for doing in the wild. They can also make a bit of a kind of like a purr sort of a noise. But they do have a variety of different noises that they're able to make.
Lacey asks if the drive-thru is still open. Yes, it is. However, you won't be able to see Tasha here on our drive-thru, so you guys are getting kind of an exclusive experience here today. Reagan is asking if Tasha has a favorite treat.
What would you say is her favorite cat?
Ooh, and when in the summertime, we like to give her some frozen blood popsicles. She really enjoys those, especially as it gets really, really hot here in July. She's also a big fan of any other like whole bodies that we give her. So I just gave her the head of a rat. Today is rat day, and as those rats get a little bit warmer, we'll give her the whole bodies, and she just loves to crunch away on those.
Lindsay has a good question. What should you do if you come across one in the wild on a hiking trail?
I was just about to cover that. So the first thing that you need to do, which is sometimes easier said than done, is stay calm. You want to make sure that if you have small children or dogs near you, that they either are picked up by you or remain still. You don't ever want to run. Running when you come across a cougar is the worst thing you can do because that will activate their predator instincts and they will chase you down. So you will want to remain calm. Either take, if you have a jacket on or a backpack on, take it and put it above your head and expand it and wave it around and make noise, because you want to make yourself look big and slightly intimidating. So that cougar looks at you and goes, oh, there is no way that I could fight that animal and win. I'm going to leave it alone. So don't turn your back, don't run, pick up children and small dogs without bending over though, keeping eye contact on the cougar the whole time, and make sure you make yourself look big and scary.
A few people want to know if Tasha does any paintings here.
She paints, yeah. And if you have painting requests, that's something that you could give to our village keepers here. They do take requests. They will do commission paintings by Miss Tasha here. She will paint in pretty much any color under the rainbow. If we have that colored paint, it is an option for you. And her paw prints are pretty precious.
Tori asks, is she smart and what things can she climb on?
I would say they're fairly intelligent, especially because we've proven that she will test us. So she knows enough to recognize new people, to know her boundaries, and then to see what she can get away with. And what will they climb? They're excellent at climbing trees. You'll see that she has a variety of different play structures and climbing structures in her enclosure here. Because she is a rescue, she was unfortunately declawed before she came to us here at Wildlife Safari. So her climbing abilities aren't quite as good as that of a wild cougar because she doesn't have those claws to help her grip into the trees as she climbs. So she's more of a jumper than a climber.
So I know you mentioned she's declawed, but in the wild, do their claws retract at all?
They sure do. They're a typical cat, so in the wild you're not going to be seeing the claws unless they pop them out to clean them, use them to hunt, or they're stretching. They'll also use their claws to scent mark. So they'll find a tree in an area that's slightly high traffic and give it some good scratches and face rubs, and that'll let other cougars and animals in the area know that they are there as well.
Awesome. We have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. Let's see. How fast can cougars run, from Jessica?
Their average speed is about 40 miles per hour, which is pretty impressive considering humans don't go anywhere near that. We're lucky if we can hit 10.
And where do they like to sleep normally?
Where do they sleep? Here at Wildlife Safari, Tasha has a shelter that she sleeps in. She's got a nice comfy hay bed in there and it'll keep the rain off of her. So that is generally her preferred sleeping spot. In the wild, they are going to bed down in their territory somewhere where they are away from people and probably under the shelter of a tree or a nice shrub. And if they have a cache of food, they'll probably sleep relatively close to that so they can keep an eyeball on it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for watching, and thank you to our wonderful keepers. And tune in tomorrow for a new animal experience.